Let's do another question. What we got, Q?
As someone who has overcome the challenges of entrepreneurship, what key traits should startup founders develop to lead their business through rapid growth and change?
Ooh, Becca.
Well, you have to be willing to pivot. The creativity that brings you to that initial starting point of why you're launching or creating your business or launching your business, you will need that trait throughout running your business because things come up, things that you can't anticipate, things that are not in your business plan. COVID's a great example. So you will need to carry that creativity. And I think what helps to cultivate that creativity is continuously exposing yourself to other situations and opportunities and continuing to network. It never gets easier. You just get a little more kind of fluent in different skill sets and toolkits. And so the more resources you can draw from will enable that creativity. And I also think it's so important to take breaks. We have a tendency to get very intense and to sort of stay in that 100-mile-an-hour lane indefinitely. And it doesn't work that way. Taking breaks, being in nature, I think are great ways to sort of decompress and tap into that creativity. Every time I give myself time to be in nature, I get creative. I get thoughts, I get ideas, things just flow. And it's counterintuitive. Sometimes you think, no, I've got to get this done, or I'm in the zone. I'm just going to stay at my desk. But it's actually the opposite. When you get out of your cell or your cubicle or your desk or whatever, and you get in nature, that's when the real creativity starts flowing, in my opinion.
Okay, if you had to go back and you looked at your success so far, what would you say was the one determining factor that you had as part of your psychological makeup or your entrepreneurial package that you think you could attribute to your success to?
Well, I think I would point to the fact that I've always been an athlete and I've always been goal-oriented and been willing to be very disciplined in achieving those goals and in recognizing the work that goes into achieving those goals, but also like being able to step back and say, okay, I didn't achieve this goal, but let me reevaluate and make new goals. So it's sort of that resiliency that you develop as an athlete.
As an athlete, you put yourself through hard stuff. Like you actually have to inflict physical pain on your body, and it takes a mental toll. And the more that you do that, the more that you're used to hardship and discomfort, the more that transfers to other areas of your life. Like I've listened to neuroscientists and people say, it's not about going to the gym and saying, I can't wait to finish and leave here and go eat a cheesecake. It's I signed up and I'm really enjoying beating myself up. And that's the same thing that you need as a founder. Say, I signed up for this. I'm enjoying the painful process, the insecurities that come with it. So that's how I would relate it. Now, I'm not an athlete, but I've heard that's how you would describe it.
That's exactly right. I have a saying that sprints are the key to life. Meaning you run down the street as fast as you can, or you're on the stationary bike and you're pedaling as fast as you can. That is a voluntary pain and suffering experience that you're putting yourself through. And when you do that and come out the other side, you create resilience and grit within yourself. And no one can take that away from you because it's a voluntary exercise. It's a lot different if Ed is standing over me on a bicycle telling me to sprint, go, 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 go. I'm not going to feel that same satisfaction when someone else is telling me to do it. I'm telling myself to do it, and I'm pushing myself through it, and I'm coming out on the other side.
Let's talk about the dark side for just a moment. Becca, I'm curious your opinion, because there's been studies out there that say that the things that you need to succeed massively, like if you look at the top founders, and I know you talk with people who are wealthy beyond measure, successful beyond measure, you're advising them. We talk about this all the time, like family businesses and generational entrepreneurship. There's two collections of data. One is they found that founders or entrepreneurs who are majorly successful, they have a massive insecurity complex. At the same time, they have a superiority complex. They fundamentally believe they can do better, be better than everybody else, but they're also massively insecure. And there's other traits that we would say for everyone, like optimistic, working hard, they got resilience. But you just look at some of these successful people and they are insecure, right? And they got massive egos. On the other side, they've done some psychological research and traits. If you look at the big five personality model, Ocean, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeability, and neuroticism, the very traits that make a great entrepreneur and someone who's wealthy as a business person are the exact opposite traits that allow someone to be happy long-term in relationships, right? And so, we have families and, things like that. But I found that there's this clash between those. The way that I used to be when I was in my 20s and I wasn't married, and the way that I'm now. For example, agreeability. If I'm high in agreeability, it's great with my wife. Her and I, we get along, and I go, whatever you want, dear, let's do it your way, etc. But then I get steamrolled in business, and I'm not a good negotiator. When I'm disagreeable and I tell people I'm negotiating, F you, it's my way or the highway, this and that, then that goes right contrary to what's going to help me in terms of relationship. Same thing with openness. If you want to be innovative, you have to be open to new ideas and to try new things. But they found that that actually does not work for long-term marriage because you kind of have to close yourself off and say, nope, that's not my life anymore. I'm just going to I'm not going to be open. I'm only going to be open to my family. So I find this contradiction starts to occur that actually does affect my performance. I don't know, Becca, what do you think? What have you seen?
I think that's right. And it's a very subjective fine line between those two sort of outcomes with that same characteristic. And it's all situational. I think, the Harvard study on adult longevity is the longest study on longevity. It's been going on for almost 100 years. And the key to longevity and health are relationships. It's the relationships we have throughout our lives that will be the single greatest determining factor on how long we live and how healthy we are. And I think there's something to be said for that. If we kind of assess all the relationships, personal, professional, and evaluate, are those relationships giving us energy or are they taking energy from us? I think it creates an opportunity to make some changes. Obviously, family is probably one of the hardest areas to, make changes in terms of relationships. We can't change how other people are going to act or operate, but we can change this. And so I love that example, Ed, that you shared, which is if I come into a personal relationship with some expectations that are really kind of geared more to a business relationship, I'm always going to be disappointed. Whereas if I approach that relationship with a different framework and mindset that will lead to a stronger relationship and more satisfaction from my mental state, it's about sort of that positioning and that mindset.